uh, architectural activism, architecture for humanity, architecture of faith, interfaith, democratic architecture, patriotic architecture, and so on. Like people ask me why am I crusading against corruption, protection of the environment, and architecture for the poor. One reason for that, our country should be in the top 20 economies of the world if we can reduce corruption and criminality. We should be number 19th uh, um, in the whole world. And I had the opportunity to change my citizenship 4 countries. I never did. After working in 39 countries, visiting more than 2,000 cities in 67 countries, I always come back. Because for me, our country is the most blessed country in the world. That's why every superpower will always be interested in our islands. And these are the can you go back? These are the tall buildings we've done all over the world. And I'm also a fellow, the only one from Southeast Asia, the Council for Tall Buildings and Urban Habitat. We are the ones certifying the tallest buildings in the world. So the tallest building right now is Burj Khalifa in Dubai, of which I was an architect urban planner since 1977, working for the rulers of Dubai. And that's 828 meters. The tallest buildings we've done, I think, is Rockwell, the first 5 towers. The tallest there is 250 meters high. So 828 meters. Although we have designed a 1.2 kilometer high, not yet built in Abu Dhabi, 1.1 kilometers, 1 kilometer, and 900 meters. We can now design, all over the world we've been meeting. We can now design, architects and structural engineers agreed that we can now design a 3-kilometer high building. So the architects approve of it, the structural engineers and the elevator companies. But the MEP, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection, they're still against it. They're not ready yet. But anyway, so it's Palafox Architecture Group and Palafox Associates. I started our company July 1st, 1989. I used to be chief architect urban planner of the Ayala Group, Henry C. as a consultant. Before that, the rulers of Dubai. And the rulers of Dubai, they got to know me because I used to be team leader, senior planner for the Metro Manila Transport Land Use and Development Planning Project. And it was in that project that I got known all over the world because the study was distributed all over the world. Unfortunately, our leaders in the Philippines did not follow our recommendations. By 1992, we should have had 8 LRT lines already. And we had addressed the flooding, the traffic, the transportation, that study. And we thought that time, I was 26 years old, 1976, that with the do nothing, we'll have catastrophic traffic, catastrophic flooding, catastrophic lack of housing, catastrophic, not ready for disasters. And we knew that in 1976, before I started working in 39 countries. Dubai, they followed all our recommendations. Dubai, when I left for Dubai in 1977, April, to assume my appointment as senior planner, architect urban planner, Dubai was probably 100 years behind Metro Manila. Maybe today Dubai is 100 years ahead of Metro Manila. So let's get started. Transit engaged vertical urbanism. And I just presented this in Dubai first week. When was that? Just 2 weeks ago. I spoke twice in an international conference in Dubai. And they wanted to do about transit engaged development. It's an irony because we don't have that in the Philippines. And talking about buildings should be taken into context. And transit engaged, it's more, I think it's a better term rather than transport-oriented developments. TODs, we've been talking about it since 1989. So that's a project we had in Clark. Can you go back? We were appointed by the Emir of Kuwait and KGL in 170-something hectares across the airport of Clark. $1 billion is committed by the ruling family of Kuwait. It will create 72,000 jobs. So you can see here, we take snapshots of the future. They should have monorails walkable, bikeable, and so on. Next slide. And in 1 hour, this is a Harvard study, in year 2000, Metro Manila is the fastest growing metropolis in the world. You know what's a metropolis? A cluster of cities. Megalopolis, several metropolitan areas. 60 persons per hour as of year 2000, the fastest growing in the world. Delhi was only 47 persons per hour. Lagos, Nigeria, 21. London, 12. New York, about 9. And 2 in Paris, and -2 in Moscow. I hope I'm reading it right. -6 in Moscow. And that's why the biggest problem we have now is the primacy of Metro Manila. It's not balanced growth. That's why I go for identifying urban growth centers outside Metro Manila as a counter-magnet to Metro Manila. Next slide. So global trends and best practices. This is an abandoned elevated railway in New York. And the government of New York wanted to demolish this. And the New Yorkers, they asked that they operate and manage it. And every year, $10 million is the operating cost. They get donations from residents, stakeholders of New York, $30 million a year. And it interconnects the tall buildings of New York. Don't have to be underground. They made a linear part out of this elevated, abandoned railway. Try to imagine LRT without the trains. Make it as an elevated walkway all over EDSA, which I've been proposing for a long time. Next slide. And these are the top 10 cities in the world. Green cities: Reykjavik, Bristol, Stockholm, Vancouver, Portland, San Francisco, Malmo, Freiburg, and Copenhagen, and Oslo. So the green cities of the world, you don't see Los Angeles. But we, after we became a Philippine Republic, we used the wrong model. Los Angeles, Beverly Hills, Hollywood. And Los Angeles designed for the automobile, not for the pedestrian. And smart cities, number 1 is Hong Kong. Then Sydney, Santiago, Chile, Copenhagen, Barcelona, Spain, Nairobi, Stockholm, Santa Cruz, Seoul, Korea, and Singapore. Livable cities: Vienna, Zurich, Auckland, Munich, Vancouver, Dusseldorf, Frankfurt, Geneva, Copenhagen, and Sydney. Sustainable cities: Frankfurt, London, Copenhagen, Amsterdam, Rotterdam, Berlin, Seoul, Hong Kong, Madrid, and Singapore. Toronto, resilient cities: Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, Chicago, Pittsburgh, Stockholm, Boston, Zurich, Washington, D.C., and Atlanta. And until now, government and developers, they see Los Angeles as a model. And I've met 3 mayors of Los Angeles, announcing to the rest of the world, Los Angeles is a 70-year-old mistake in planning. Then when in our conversation, congratulations, Mayor, so and so and so. And congratulations for telling the rest of the world the Los Angeles planning, car-oriented, is a big mistake. We have a problem in my country, and they ask, where are you from? The Philippines. What's your problem? I said, we copied all your mistakes, and our leaders of government and industry and business, they don't know it's a mistake. You can see billboards, developers, just like living in Los Angeles. Los Angeles, even Makati, is how not to do it. Next slide. So, waterfront is a front door of development. This is in Stockholm, Sweden. And Dubai only had 70 kilometers natural waterfront, all sold out as prime real estate. So, Sheikh Mohammed decided that Palm Islands, artificial reclaimed islands, just add 2,000 kilometers more. We have the 3rd longest coastline in the world. And how do we treat our waterfront? Back of the house, basurahan, sewage treatment plant. So when we designed Rockwell, we decided that Pasig River will be the front door to Rockwell, not Bellevue. Yeah. Next slide. So the Crocodile Street area, biophilic city, San Francisco. Next slide. Copenhagen, carbon management and planning. People go to work or school in bicycles, including the Prime Minister. Next slide. It's in Copenhagen. This is a bridge just for bicycles. And I had proposed that every 800 meters of Pasig River, San Juan River, and Marikina River should have pedestrian and bicycle lanes so that people will ride. We design healthy cities and healthy communities and healthy buildings. We should walk at least 10,000 steps a day to stay healthy. In Dubai, I can even walk 20,000 steps a day because they have air-conditioned walkways and very nice metro, LRT. In Manhattan, I can walk 30,000 a day steps. But in Makati, only 2,000 steps. Because in Makati, you know, the signal lights, like near our office, 99 seconds for the car, green light. Only 9 seconds for the automobile. If you are in high heels, you'll never make it. In Shibuya, Japan, it's 60 seconds for the pedestrians, 60 seconds for the cars. Similarly, in many intersections in London, still with our infrastructure, government policies still favors the automobile, and yet only 2% of Filipinos own cars. And all of us are pedestrians. Once you leave your car, you're a pedestrian. So I don't understand the priority. So this Portland, Oregon, 250 miles of bicycle lanes. Next slide. Freebird, Germany, car free. They make Mercedes-Benz, Audi, and BMW, Germany. And yet, Freebird City, they do not allow cars. Only pedestrians, bicycles, and public transit. Next slide. Barcelona, Spain, walkable community. This is the Las Ramblas. Several kilometers long. So it used to be a canal. They make it as a pedestrian street. And if you only have half a day in Barcelona, just walk this street, pedestrian street. You can see the culture, the history, the cuisine, from the first class to business class to economy class. This is like a democratic space. And even many hotels, you enter through this pedestrian street. Next slide, Hong Kong. One of the most, one of the best 10 cities in the world. You know Hong Kong? If the rest of the world, we use the density of Hong Kong, all the world's 7 billion population, we can all fit in the state of Texas. Hong Kong. 70, and yet they have 71% open space. Here in our country, open spaces, the lungs of the city, are being sold to be built on. It looks like some developers, not all of them, but it's profit, 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 never mind profit. When you build an open space, just like selling your lungs, these are the lungs of the cities. In Singapore, they are not, these are public housing. They are interconnecting the buildings. And one reason for that, disaster preparedness. If one building is on fire, you go to the next building. And you reduce the use of elevators. All Singaporeans I spoke to, they like this, except one person. Why don't you like it? He gets more visits from his mother-in-law because of these bridges. Next slide. This one in Seoul, Korea. I don't know if it's clear, but it used to have a skyway. They covered the canal, and the former mayor of Seoul, Korea, with her leadership, they removed the skyway, they removed the cover to the canal, and this is now one of the best visited place in Seoul, Korea. They gave up the skyway, they gave up the road, opened up the canal. During lunchtime, yeah. It's something. Next we go to, next is Dubai. Dubai in 1965, not a single kilometer of paved road. I was invited by the ruling class of Dubai in 1976 to help plan Dubai, bring it into the 21st century in less than 15 years. And the rural Dubai, with our good urban planning, master planning, architectural control, and their oil income that would run out in 35 years, he used that as a leverage to borrow money through Lloyd's of London, develop the creek as a inner harbor. This is the same creek that was dredged and developed in Dubai. And this is Dubai today. And they have more landscaping than Makati or Metro Manila. the ruler of Dubai, we were 20 from 14 countries, expats. I was the youngest and the only Southeast Asian Filipino. And I brought my family there, and and they, we lived so nicely until Henry C. and the late Enrique Sobel invited me to come home. But what we understood the ruler was only 5 instructions and goals. Design Dubai as if there's no oil. Number 2, make Dubai as a pace-setter city in the Middle East and North Africa, #1 city. Number 3 was create a garden city out of the desert. We're importing garden soil from Pakistan, irrigation from Germany, and flowers from Holland. Number 4 was, what was it? Study the competition and how we can overtake them. At that time, maybe Kuwait was 50 years ahead of Dubai, maybe Tehran and Riyadh were maybe 100 years ahead of Dubai. Metro Manila was probably 200 years ahead of Dubai. And the fifth one, which I like so much, for every year of service, you go around the world 1 month and go and observe and bring back to Dubai what we can learn from them. So the goal is Dubai must be planned without oil. Because in 35, 40 years, no more oil. So my colleagues, of course, I've also been to London, Paris, New York, but I concentrated on cities in the world that became first world within 15 years. Because that was the goal also, bring Dubai from the third world into the first world in 15 years. And they were able to achieve that. So first, I went and observed and interviewed people in San Francisco. How did San Francisco get started? Go west, young man, from the East Coast. Gold. San Francisco started with gold. And then construction boom come, trading post, banking center, commercial center, educational center, aerospace center, and now it's an information technology center. So they evolved from gold into what? One of the best cities in the world. If you look at the turn of the century cities in the US, many of those gold mining cities are now ghost town. And the secret is San Francisco was able to evolve from one resource to the other, and the residents invested in their own country, not just like our corrupt people here, they buy real estate all over the world. And then the next one, instant city that, if I may, that became first world in less than 15 years, Hong Kong. How did Hong Kong get started? Yes. Opium. Started with opium and drugs. So may pag-asa pang Pilipinas. Opium and drugs. Then the refugees of communist China, especially the Shanghai contingent, they went to Hong Kong as refugees of communist China, and they brought with them manufacturing skills and garment making skills. So Hong Kong did not stop from very lucrative business of opium and drugs, manufacturing center, garment making center, and became regional center, tourism center, banking center, and what have you. Then Singapore. How did Singapore get started? They were kicked out of the Federation of Malaysia. You know why? They have short family names, with all due respect. They were Chinese. And they were so lucky, they had a Lee Kuan Yew who went home, honor graduate from Cambridge in England. He's so smart, started with Singapore without any natural resources. And I think, this is my own assumption, he got inspired by Hong Kong with more landscaping. In the first years of Singapore as an independent republic, landscaping, every tree you plant and grow for 5 years was tax deductible. What we call Singapore vines here, they call Singapore Manila vines. Many Filipino architects, landscape architects like I.P. Santos, exported to Singapore our acacia trees, what they call Singapore vines. 5 years. Why 5 years? After 5 years, that tree can take care of itself. Visualize our country. After the photo op, never mind the tree. After the photo op. Then went to Europe. Which cities in Europe became first world in less than 15 years? Zurich and Geneva. And who were there? Refugees from the world wars of Europe. The German refugees, they went to Zurich. The Zurich is German speaking. And the French speaking, they went to Geneva. And the rest of Switzerland, the Italians. So there are practically 3 languages in Switzerland. And how they get started? Again, the refugees of the wars, they brought with them chocolate making and watchmaking. So Zurich and Geneva started chocolate making and watchmaking, but they did not stop there. They became the banking center, regional center, international center, and so on. So lessons learned, I brought it with me to the conversation table in Dubai. My colleagues, of course, they talk about London, Paris, New York, but I said it took more than 100 years to join the first world in London, Paris, New York. And after that, I continue studying cities. March 16 was my birthday month. And you know where I spent my birthday? Hiroshima and Nagasaki. When Hiroshima was bombed, it was written, nothing will grow here in 70 years or get developed. You go to Hiroshima and Nagasaki today, more efficiently run, better managed, much cleaner than Makati. And it was predicted in 75 years, nothing will grow, nothing will get developed. And the people from Hiroshima, I did not even know me. I didn't even know them. They celebrated my birthday, people I just met in an authentic restaurant. And so now I'm continuing that, what I call instant cities of the world. How did they grow? So the Palm Islands, Dubai. This one is not just for real estate, although they have real estate. It's a wave breaker. I've been proposing that in Manila Bay, put a tunnel, a bridge connecting Cavite and Bataan with a wave breaker. Still suffering from analysis paralysis. Next slide. So the ports of Dubai, one of the busiest in the world. Next slide. Dubai Airport, the second international port, I think it opened 2020, will be the largest airport in the world. Combined capacity of London Heathrow Airport and Chicago O'Hare, the busiest airports today. And today, Dubai, no personal income tax. And every citizen of Dubai, there are 10 jobs available. Every citizen of Dubai, there are 6 tourists coming in. Dubai doesn't have gold. They're, I think, the top 3 exporters of gold in the world. They don't have orchids. I think they are number 1, number 2 exporter of orchids in the world. They import and re-export. The tallest building in the world, 828 meter high. Boards are allowed. And, you know, I'm also an environmental planner. Many of our colleagues in the environmental movement, they're against tall building. I explained to them, in one point, you have the tourist belt, the hotels and the viewing decks. You have the office district, places to work. You have the residential district, the condominiums, and you even have convention centers, places of worship, healthcare and wellness, and so on. So in one point, you have the place to live, workshop and dine, learn and worship, with healthcare and wellness centers. If you make it in an urban sprawl, you would need 10 blocks and maybe 5 kilometers of roads just to connect your utilities, just to connect garbage. So for me, a tall building is more environment friendly than a single-story home, 2-story home in the middle of the city. Next slide. The evolution of cities. Our city started as port-driven cities because of the port, agricultural age, then railway-driven cities, industrial age, then freeway-driven cities, the modern age, and airport-driven cities, information age. And we were the first ones to propose Aerotropolis, airport-driven city in Clark in 1998. The United Arab Emirates are airport-driven cities, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Sharjah, and so on. And next slide. So these are the blessings we have from the chief architect, chief engineer, chief planner up there. We're number one in the world in marine biodiversity. We're now number one in voice call centers. We're now number one in sailors and seafarers. I don't know why we have the worst boats and ships. We're not. I'd like to believe we're number one in musicians and nurses and doctors, and we're number two in BPOs, number two in geothermal energy. I cannot understand why the cost of electricity is so high. Um, we have the third longest coastline in the world. Dubai only had, as I said, 70 kilometers of coastline. That's why they had to do the Palm Islands to increase 2,000 kilometers more of waterfront, which is prime real estate. And countries go to war because they don't have waterfront, like Iraq invading Kuwait. Kuwait is blocking the waterfront of Iraq and the Arabian Gulf or Persian Gulf. And we have the third longest coastline in the world. And if you rotate the map of the world, we are in the center of the world. So we're probably the first global city in the world because more than 350 years, we're the Asia-Pacific hub of Spanish Europe. And Magellan, the Portuguese, I think that the first sort of job. The King of Spain, King Philip, that's why Philippines, contracted the job of discovering the Philippines to a Portuguese, Magellan. And without a nautical map, he was brought here by the winds and the waves in the Philippines. And if you rotate the map of the world saying, we're in the center of the world, it's no wonder every superpower will always be interested in our islands. More than 300 years, Asia-Pacific of Spanish Europe. 4 years, the Japanese. 50 years, the Americans. 2 years, the British. And the Dutch failed. They tried. So every superpower will be interested in our islands. And what do we have? The third longest coastline in the world. We have a Philippine Coast Guard, all coast, no guards. We have a Philippine Air Force, all air, no force. So, for me, I'd rather lease out for 1,000 years to other countries and share the wealth of these outlying islands, which will, Borneo used to be part of the Philippines. We're losing them. So why not just going to joint venture partnership? I'd rather have a slice of the pie than no pie at all. Next slide. So, wait. Third longest corner. We're number 4 in gold reserves. But Dubai exports more gold than we do. And number 4 in shipbuilding, number 5 in other mineral resources, and number 12 in human resources. The Filipino expatriates, let's not call them OFW. Sounds like prisoner of war. When I was in Dubai, I was called an expat. But anyway, Filipinos are the preferred employees of employers all over the world. We are 400 times the size of Singapore. Only 5 million Singaporeans. Why is our GDP the same as Singapore? And we're 400 times. 350 times the size of Hong Kong, 8 times the size of Taiwan, 3 times the size of South Korea. From the 1930s to the 1970s, we were number 2 in Asia. And Metro Manila was thought to be the metropolis with the highest development potential as financial center. So the rest of Asia voted Metro Manila as a center of finance for Asian Development Bank. Japan, the biggest donor, agreed only provided the president of ADB will always be Japanese. Next. And you know what happened? Corruption, criminality, climate change, poverty, too much politics, the police, and so on. And was not being addressed. And we have beautiful, effective plans. From Daniel Burnham, he planned Manila as a city beautiful. And his inspiration was not Los Angeles. His inspiration was Paris, River Seine, Pasig River. The boulevards of Paris, our roads. And then Venice, the canals of Venice, our steros. And Manila Bayfront, the Bay of Naples in Italy. So while the Americans were here, we were following the Daniel Burnham plan. And when we became a strong republic, we forgot the city beautiful and city efficient cities introduced by us, by the Americans. And we are in Intramuros. We still have 16th century town planning, urban planning. You know what Intramuros means? Inside the walls. So who were inside the walls? Of course, you have the church, the town plaza, and only the ilustrados and the principal. The learned, the rich, the connected. Extramuros, outside the walls, the peasants, the Indios, and the Sanglais, the Chinese merchants. If you look at our cities today, like maybe Makati and Ortigas Center, if you consider the town plaza, the central business district, like the employees of Makati, Ortigas, and for that matter, maybe the whole of Metro Manila, the employees spend about 4 to 6 hours a day in traffic. Why? Those close to the business district 70, the rest of the more intelligent world with their leaders, they open up their subdivisions with CCTV cameras so that people can pass through. I've been recommending that, and other countries follow me, pay me very well, but in my country, I sound like a revolutionary. It's best practices in the world, but here when I talk like that, like being a revolutionary. And Philippines 2021 to 2121. At Palafox Associates, Palafox Architecture, one of our crusade, nobody's paying us. A snapshot of the future for the next 100 years. Why 2021? The Philippines will be 500 years old as the Philippines. 2121, that's only 100 years, 4 centuries, 4 generations. In Kathmandu, in Nepal, after the big earthquake, Palafox Associates, Palafox Architecture, and I was assigned as chief architect, urban planner, designed a hospital, a university and 3 schools, and the buildings should last 1,000 years. And I told the donors are Buddhist Chuchi members from 96 countries. The master and founder of Chuchi is in Hualien, Taiwan. And I told her and the donors, I only have a 25-year professional liability. And it was so humbling, the reaction was, so many architects all over the world have the skills, but they don't have the heart. Others, they have the heart, but they don't have the skills. And we believe you have both of them. What a humbling affirmation. Foreigners seem to appreciate the Filipino architect, the Filipino professionals, than our own compatriots. So, Philippines, we're only talking about 100 years. 2021 to 2121. Hopefully by 2021, drugs, criminality, and corruption will have been reduced. Next slide. So these are nice postcards. The skyline of Makati, Fort Bonifacio, Ortigas, and so on. And what's wrong about it? The Makati Central Business District, the daytime population is 11 times the nighttime population. Because the employees of Makati are priced out of the housing stock of Makati. At the American Planning Association, of which I'm a very active member also in the American Institute of Architects, 1998 in Boston, the theme of our conference was revolutionary ideas in urban planning, architecture, and so on. And in that, all the conversations there and many of the lecturers, sharers, they said that if you have a big single family home in the middle of the city, the larger carbon footprint, because you are arrogating to yourself prime urban land resources, you're preventing more families to live closer to their places of work, you're encouraging more urban sprawl to encroach into the forests, into the farms. I tried, when we were hired to do the development plan of Ford's Park, instead of shaming them, they shamed me. And we have to re-educate our leaders. Elsewhere in the world, the Clintons, the Bloombergs, the Rockefellers, when they are in Manhattan, they live in an apartment. Their big villas are maybe 100 miles away. And in Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew live in an apartment. Hong Kong, the very rich people like Lee Ka-shing, they live in an apartment right in the city. They may have big mansions but outside. But our leaders, I think the mentality is still the intramuros, extramuros concept. That's why it's not really inclusive development, it's exclusive. And everybody talks about inclusive. So we planned San Juan, also want to open up the villages around Ortigas, and they should build 4 to 9 stories high. So in a 2,000 square meter lot, 1,000 square meter lot, you can have one unit, and the other units are rental income. But there's so much. You are millennials. Many of us here live in villages. You may want to re-educate your grandparents and parents that they have a carbon footprint for maintaining a big house. We call it in American Planning Association monster homes. If you have a 600 square meter floor area, you have a monster home. And imagine, many of our 26 million poorest families in our country, 5 members of the family in 8 square meters. That's why I want to call the attention of government after Super Typhoon Yolanda. I told them the bunkhouses violate human dignity. The survivors of the disaster, the only thing they have is human dignity. How do you expect family of 5, daughters sleeping with their brothers and their grandfathers and their fathers? It will be incest by design. Then I heard 150,000 pregnant young women after 9 months. And I was shamed by leaders in government for announcing to the rest of the world it violates human dignity. Because the minimum habitable area, even in evacuation areas, is 3.5 square meters per person. That's international standard. And this is the EDSA corridor. It used to be called Highway 54 meters wide, built in 1954, proposed by the American Corps of Engineers in 1945. It's supposed to be a transportation corridor. And EDSA is, again, how not to do it. Because EDSA is functioning as a major artery, minor artery, residential access road, military road, shopping center road, cemetery road, etc. Highway 54, I remember it when I was young. It had an island of trees to separate the fast-moving lanes to the slow-moving lanes. And so that when you enter the villages or the malls, you go to a slow-moving road on the right side of the trees. And I have been proposing that for every car you own, you must plant 10 trees. In Dubai, Abu Dhabi, I request 17 trees just to recover the oxygen out of the carbon monoxide per car. So at EDSA, if there are 4 million vehicles, 400,000 vehicles, we need 4 million trees along EDSA. One of the most polluted corridors in the world, EDSA. Ayala Avenue, 70,000 vehicles a day. So Ayala Avenue should have 700,000 trees. And this is EDSA corridor. You have the central business districts, strangulated by gated low-density communities and gated military camps. I talked to the Defense Secretary, Lorenzana. He's good. I told him, before you open up the village roads, government must be the exemplar, not the exempted. So they open up now the military roads. Hopefully they open up the cemetery roads and also the village roads. Next slide. So this is a postcard of Makati. It's how not to do it. All of this should be about 4 to 9 story residential in the villages, but nobody's listening. Or at least 25% listen to me, but the 75% don't want to change their lifestyle. Next slide. And vertical urbanism, it's really, for me, it's more environment friendly because you occupy less urban space to benefit more people, to live closer to places of work, versus urban sprawl. We have to integrate jobs, housing, infrastructure corridors, green spaces, and walkability. Planning is balance. You look at Makati, the daytime population is 11 times the nighttime population. So the problem of Makati is bringing in the 11 times population in the morning, bringing them out of the evening. Whoever says they can solve traffic in 3 years, they don't know what they're talking about. It's, with all due respect to them, they are my friends. Because they're only looking at the supply side of traffic. The cars, the buses, the trains, the roads. They are not looking at the demand side of traffic, which is the land use, the density, timing of development. So if you have an open space, what's the traffic generation? Pedestrian traffic. You put 7 tall buildings, it will probably generate 20,000 vehicles. After I left Ayala in 1989 to put up Palafox, from 1989 until today, the density of Makati became 4 times. Is the access capacity, public transport capacity, parking increased 4 times? No addition. So there's more demand. Next slide. Sustainable community. How much time do we have? I can go on. All right, next slide. So we have sustainable. So design on human scale matters. Full use of urban amenities, more provide. I can't read it. Yeah. Yeah. Full use of amenities. Uh, Providing transportation alternatives, efficient use of land resources, good design really matters, and so on. Next slide. Green urbanism, you can spend all night to describe it, but it's really integrating places to work, shop and dine, learn and worship, and one community. Next slide. Green architecture. I don't know whether this will be followed. We want the proposed museum in Quezon City, and the condition I had was retain all the 50-year-old trees, let the trees be inside the museum, and snake around the museum. In 2009, we have a 6-star hotel project in Subic. Our clients wanted us to destroy 366 70-year-old trees. Our architect's fee was $1 million. I returned the $1 million, and I fought destruction of the urban forest of Subic. I got a 50 million libel case, and so on. I got harassed. And CNN Atlanta, Anna Koren, BBC London, Al Jazeera Doha, and most big news media in the world, they came to meet the crazy architect who would $1 million in architect's fee just to save a few trees. Because for me, a 50-year-old tree, the replacement value is 9 million pesos. The oxygen it gave for 50 years, the rainwater it harvested, the fertilizer it gave planet Earth, the beauty and cooling effect it gave planet Earth. So those were 70-year-old trees times 366 trees. It's more valuable than the 1 million. We want it. I asked the board to give 2 million pesos more construction budget. I wanted to save the 250-year-old trees to build around them. First reaction, no architect. Not 1 centavo more. We are a club. Then I told them, those 2 trees I like to save, replacement value is 18 million pesos. They approved it. After the retrofit and renovation, retaining those 2 50-year-old trees, the value from 1.8 million went up to 12 million. Nobody's selling. And zero net energy buildings. I'm probably the first, and our firm's the first, if not the only ones today, to sign up with the 2030 challenge with the American Institute of Architects, zero net energy buildings by 2030. So we have committed that by 2030, carbon neutral, the buildings and communities we design. And that's one justification when people cannot understand I can give up $1 million for the trees because of my commitment to planet Earth. Next slide. So we should all, government and developers should adopt this. People first or social equity. So every project we do, we don't just think of the square meters, building heights, and so on. How many jobs will it create? How many poor people, alleviation of poverty or social equity? And the second P would be planet Earth, to the environment. And then the third is, then we can talk about profit, economic goals, or prosperity. Number 4 would be culture, history, and heritage. There was a question a while ago. Number 5, interfaith spirituality. If these are not sanctified, we don't accept the project. Of course, also corruption. We don't accept the project. So, siguro, we give up about 30-40% of potential clients. Next slide. one of my professors in Harvard, he used to tell us that this century is a rest century. Reimagine, replan, re-architecture, redesign, re-engineer, redevelop, renew, reduce, reuse, recycle, and hopefully we'll have urban renaissance. Next slide. And sustainability, meeting the needs of the present generations without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their needs. I prefer the simple definition of a unknown American Indian chief. We borrowed the environment from future generations. Next slide. This is the future, parang pre-war escolta. The yellow ones, we live here, we work here, we shop and dine here, and the street is for people, pedestrians, bicycles, and public transit. Next slide. Mixed-use, multi-use development. This is our latest project in Davao, Felcris Centrale. You can see we create a lot of social interaction spaces. This was the last project that I ribbon cutting with Mayor Duterte. This was the last time that, mixed use also, Felcris in Rockwell. It was a brownfield, abandoned power plant. And the late Henry Lopez, I didn't know them, he was going to sell the property as is where it is for 8,000 per square meter. Then 5 of his friends told him, because they were not in real estate, talk to Jun Palafox before you decide to sell. So I talked with him, okay. Option number 1, sell it as is where it is, 8,000 pesos per square meter. Option number 2, do minimum. We just copy Bel Air or the gated communities of Makati, 20,000 per square meter. Option number 3, high-rise mixed-use development. Before the first permits were even approved, land value, 120,000 square meters. So a good plan, a good design, 15 times value appreciation. And one of their projects, the First Philippine Industrial Park, we started planning $1 per square meter. After the plans were finished, no permits yet, $100 per square meter. And this is Rockwell. You can see it. We did I'm the principal architect master planner in Palafox Joseph of the whole 15.5 hectares and the architects of record for the first 5 towers. Rizal, Luna, Morsoli, Morsoli West, and so on. Can you go back? Yeah. What we are taught in school is there are 4 kinds of facade. You know that. Front facade, back facade, left side, right side. For us at Palafox, more importantly, is the facade from above. How the buildings relate to the urban fabric of the surroundings, how the buildings dialogue with the open spaces, and even if the building code allows 1 meter in between tall buildings, we have 30 meters in between, so that it's not just to frame the view of the sunset, the skyline of Makati, skyline of Ortigas and Laguna Lake, but it's really also for addressing disasters. Many of our tall buildings now, let's say you have 5,000 residents above, if there's an earthquake or fire, can you fit 5,000 people on the ground? Plus the ambulances, the fire trucks, and so on. Many of our developers, with all due respect, some of them are my clients, but those buildings are not doing them, is people here seem to want to reach the sky, but don't know how to reach the ground. And next slide. So this is our fifth facade. The groundscaping, the dialogue within buildings, with the lungs of the neighborhood. Next slide. And in Dubai, I learned the top 3. The 3 kinds of infrastructure, I've added the other 2. Progressive infrastructure, these are the international seaports, international airports, international schools, international hospitals, and so on. Hard infrastructure, we all know that. The roads and the utilities. Soft infrastructure, the ease of doing business. No red tape, no corruption. I was representing the urban planning architecture team of the Dubai government. The rule of Dubai instructed us, you approve the permit in 1 day. If any one of your signatories, you have any objection, you have a maximum fortnight, 2 weeks to approve it, or to justify your objection. You cannot justify your objection. the permit must be approved. Because the businessman, it's his own money, his own land, and his own reputation. And you, the lawyer told us, I'm only paying you 6 hours a day. Because by 1:30 we had no work anymore. Of course, the wages were so generous. Then green and sustainable and institutional. You may have the best plans of the world, but if you don't have the institutions to get it approved, then it must be green and sustainable. Next slide. And the priorities of the road corridor must be first priority pedestrian, then bicycle, then public transit. The last priority is the automobile. Next slide. And there are 20 kinds of urban transport. And our infrastructure officials in government, they don't even consider the sidewalk as a mode of transportation. And sidewalk and public transit are the most inclusive. Anybody can ride them. Next slide. I talk about this. In Shibuya and in Oxford Circus, is it in London? They have more seconds in the green cycle of the street lights for pedestrians. Next slide. And yeah, this one is in London. Next slide. The High Line in New York, I talked about it, abandoned line, interconnecting all the tall buildings. Hudson Yards is one of the largest developments in the world right now. The architect was my professor in Harvard, Eugene Kono of Confederacy Facts. This one, even sidewalks, there's a texture so that even if you are blind, you know you are entering a dangerous driveway. Next slide. Curitiba, Brazil. About 35 years ago, James Lerner, the mayor of Curitiba, Brazil, architect, urban planner, he made Curitiba as one of the most sustainable cities in the world, most of the green cities. You can see even an ordinary bus stop, the same floor level as the bus, so that even if you are in a wheelchair, you can go there. And only one fare anywhere in Curitiba. Next slide. So for us, those with less in wheels should have more in roads. 1/3 for people, pedestrians and bicycles, 1/3 for trees and landscaping, and only 1/3 for moving traffic for vehicles. Next slide. So this is, you may want to do this with us. We're taking pictures of the uglification of our cities. And we give the mayors on their birthdays how they should look like, so architectural perspective and urban design perspectives. Half of the mayors love us for it, they hire us. The other half, they are very upset because we put it in photographs and drawings. So this is for Remedios Street in Manila, postcard from the future. Next slide. I've been proposing the American Corps of Engineers in 1945. They proposed 6 circumferential roads in Metro Manila. Number 4, that's why circumferential road number 4, EDSA. Then number 5. Until now, 72 years ago, number 6 not yet implemented. And for so many years also, I've been advocating circumferential number 10, linking Cavite and Bataan. You come from Cavite, you don't have to mess around with the heavy traffic of Metro Manila. You just go straight to Bataan. Similar manner. Number 10 for me is a developmental transportation corridor. And we can encourage more urban growth centers outside Metro Manila, like San Fernando and Clark and San Pablo, and linking the South China Sea, West Philippine Sea, Manila Bay, and Pacific Ocean. Next slide. So, the first time I went around the world, circumventing the world, 1978, I thought of linking our country by bridges and railways. And I presented it in New York, 2006, linking the whole Philippines. And from Lawag, Ilocos Norte to Davao, only 3 hours by train with a fast train. It's shorter than waiting for delayed flights. And also in 2006, 60th anniversary of the United Nations, I spoke in New York. And I said to interconnect the whole world with bridges and railways and tunnels. The first reaction was, what's this crazy Filipino talking about? The next morning, people were congratulating me. Russians, Americans, Japanese, Europeans, congratulating me. During the night, They calculated it. It's cheaper than the Gulf War. And I told them, you have not even imputed the land value appreciation and the new gateway cities. Somebody proposed to connect the Bering Straits, the Cold War countries of America and Russia, Alaska to Russia. And I said, why don't we do the whole world? And it seems today, China is doing it, but excluding America. And they say the Silk Trade route in the past. Malaysia will now connect with Singapore and the rest of Europe. Next slide. So some case studies, selected projects. So San Juan City, we did the urban planning for those from San Juan. The first thing we did was hazard mapping. The hazard map of San Juan, including flooding, we overlaid it over the zoning map. So that areas vulnerable to disasters, different building code. Because good news, Public Works has announced there's a comprehensive master plan for flood control and drainage in Metro Manila. Bad news, it will be finished in 2035. So what do? We'll be proposing adaptive architecture, adaptive engineering. Look at the highest flood line and then don't put any bedrooms below that. So maybe your house is on stilts or floated and 3 levels of access. The access from the street level sidewalk. Second level, elevated interconnected walkways, the whole city of San Juan. And third level, a monorail, interconnect all the tall buildings of San Juan, interconnected with MRT EDSA and LRT Aurora. We got recognition from Germany. I was asked to present our Palafox plan for San Juan as a sample of a smart city of the future in Germany. What's an irony in Berlin? What's an irony? We don't have one single smart city in our country. And yet I was giving lectures to the Germans and Europeans, our smart city plan for San Juan as a model. The Americans heard it. I presented also in New York. The Chinese heard it. I presented in Shanghai. Until now, no recognition in our own country. I hope if this generation of leaders cannot implement it, you millennials will be the one to implement it. And please, you can see here, San Juan. Next slide. So, San Juan today, the future. Annapolis Street today, the future with the monorail. Araneta Center, we designed that also. Pasig River, the future. And Marikina River banks. Marikina floodline was 19 meters high in 1919. And yet they allowed building permits only for houses no more than 9 meters. So we were hired to do a plan for the riverbanks, and we recommended that no habitable spaces below 21 meters. Below, it can be parking. Like we were the ones who conceptualized the SN Marikina. It's on stilts, supposed to be all parking on the flood levels past 100 years. But I think they added some shops. Next slide. So, MRT 7, we've done that. It's going to be implemented. Next slide. And Global Gateway Cities. This is also in Global Gateway Cities. How you have the walkways, the monorails interconnected. Next slide. And Global Gateway also. Transport corridors, bus dedicated lanes. Next slide. And this one is Ilocos Norte Tourism Master Plan today, the future. Next slide. This is intermodal transit terminal in Jakarta. We also designed that. This is our design for the former airport in Hong Kong. Next slide. Also in Hong Kong. And this one in Dubai, Financial Center. This one is King Abdallah Financial District in Saudi Arabia. We designed the 6 buildings, again, interconnected with walkways and monorail. On the ground street level, only pedestrians and beautiful cars. If your car is ugly, you go around the basement. You're a garbage truck, the lowest level. Next slide, business park, also called Saudi Arabia. Uh, and this one, again, the modest Rockwell. I think we all like to live in environment-friendly master plan cities and communities that are more walkable, uh, more connected, more accessible, more bikeable, safer, better lighted, more convenient, cleaner, with mixed income, cross-generational, with mixed income developments, integrating places to live, work, shop, and dine, learn and worship, with healthcare and recreation, and with some leisure, and with 24-hour cycle activity centers. Thank you very much. Yeah. I don't know if there's time for questions. You can just email us. Thanks for your patience despite the temp. I got this throat and colds because in Japan 3 degrees. Last Sunday here was 42 degrees. Is there time for questions? Sir? No? There time for questions?
Yes.
Okay.
Are there any questions?
Or let's say it is just a form of adaptation. How would this idea preserve our own identity style in the field of architecture? Because you said a while ago, planning is balance. And you are referring to the skills and having a heart for the people. But yeah, it is contradicting to the idea of development. And or let's say, how would you prepare Philippines to be a globally competitive while maintaining our cultural identity that been imparted by our great ancestors?
Yeah, good question. It's more of getting inspiration from and adapt it where it's feasible and it's adaptable. So forgive the word copy. I think it even came out to Manila Times. I was not able to edit it. Exact words of the ruler of Dubai. Go around the world and copy. It's really benchmarking. Aspirational, inspirational. Otherwise you get plagiarism, lawsuits. What's the other one? Culture, heritage. We have stupid, no, I'm sorry, obsolete laws in our country. You know, if you talk to landowners, developers, why do they sell it for high-rise buildings? There's no incentive. Elsewhere in the world, transfer of development rights. For those of you who have been to New York, Fifth Avenue, New York, what's the tallest building there? Trump Tower. And my anecdotal research is St. Patrick's Cathedral, Roman Catholic. Donald Trump bought the air rights unused by the cathedral. In Makati, when I was chief architect urban planner of Ayala, there were so many violations for building height because the land values went up. So I said, floor area ratio, before there was no, I was the one who introduced floor area ratios in this country. It was in Dubai. It used to be a maximum number of meters and floors. So the buildings in Makati were, I described them as low, fat, and squat. I used to be fat, so it's like me. I said, and with the floor area ratio, you have more flexibility to have building forms. Philippine architecture heritage is not the Bahay Kubo. Bobby Manos is a friend of mine, one of my mentors. But Philippine architecture is like, for me, even Rockwell's Philippine architecture. There's a unifying element in the landscape, connectivity, convergence, urban fabric, and so on. And I think we have architecture in the Philippines, but we haven't achieved the Philippine architecture. Because we have the Arabs and the Muslims were here 630 years ago. The Spaniards and Europeans only 500 years ago. Even the Philippines, prehistoric, our Aborigines, who are there, the Negritos, the Malays, the Indians. So it's a combination of all this towards a Philippine architecture, and we are not yet there. Locsin's Cultural Center, that's brutalism. Brutalism architecture borrowed from Germany after the war. Simple is beautiful and so on, because they had no money. Then postmodernism, the grandfather's clock came back. So for me, those who say Philippine architecture, because there is no Bahay Kubo with 46 stories high. That's why, when there's so many projects where I get challenged, we wanted Philippine architecture. And I said, there's no such thing. We have architecture in the Philippines. still evolving. There are Filipinos in 200 countries, more than the nation members of United Nations. So being puristic Philippine architecture bahay kubo, with all due respect, let's agree to disagree because I do not agree. Look at Dubai. We preserve the Bastakia. Those are mud houses with wind towers. We preserve the wind towers made of mud with the skyscrapers. And for me, it's a good mixture. It's a good mixture. So, having done work in 39 countries, I've learned more lessons like School of Hard Knocks than Harvard. Blending them together, have a happy compromise, a happy balance, and so on. So, let's agree to disagree because I don't agree with you. There's a disconnect in my presentation. It's an evolution, like the evolution of cities, port-driven, railway-driven, highway-driven, then airport-driven. Other cities in the world that were port-driven, they keep evolving, like London, Paris. They were all port-driven. They solved their traffic, their drainage and flood problem. Manila, we never did. We never did. 2/3 of Netherlands is underwater and reclaimed. How come they don't get flooding in Netherlands? Schiphol Airport, 8 meters below sea level. How come Schiphol Airport, one of the reasons in the world, they don't have flooding? Rockwell, 4-level basement, beside Pasig River, how come we don't have flooding in the basements of Rockwell? The technology is there. And let me tell you, corruption is very prevalent even in architectural practice, engineering practice, construction, and infrastructure. For 45 years as an architect, I never received a single cent. Referral commissions of suppliers and contractors. I return them or give it to the owners. I spent 4 years of my life in the seminary. The word corruption comes from 2 Latin words, cor, the heart, rapture, to heart. That's why we are a broken-hearted nation, or corruptore, breaking down together as a nation. And fighting corruption, if you believe in your Catholic faith, or any faith, any religion, it's a corporal works of mercy. Because the worst sufferers of corruption are the 26 million homeless, hungry Filipinos. So fighting corruption is a corporal works of mercy. You can get graces for that. And also in the seminary, I learned, if you see something wrong, you do nothing, it's a sin of omission. It's as bad as sin of commission. Only 1% of Filipinos are corrupt. But the 98.99% are cowards, don't care anymore. They all say, oh, this guy is corrupt, this guy is corrupt, my fraternity brother is corrupt. Can you testify? Felino Palafox. I can't. Why? Kapraternity ko, kamag-anak ko, ninong ko, kaibigan ng nanay ko. Kaya we'll always be poor because mga duwag. I'm sorry to say that. We don't know that corruption has destroyed our country. Without corruption, we should be in the top 20 economies of the world. Number 19. And by 2050, we should be number 16 without corruption. We'll be overtaking many European cities. But if we continue to be takot magsumbong, mag-migrate na lang tayo. I have death threats for reporting corruption. I have millions of libel cases for allegedly maligning the good name of the corrupt. Thank God I'm still around. Yeah. So we are into architecture and so on. I think we should address corruption. Even biddings and competitions. It's not the best architect, the best design. Who decides on it? Bids and Awards Committee in government. In the private sector, someone, the one who says, the COO. You know what COO? The children of the owner. They're not even the official organization. Yeah, thanks for the question anyway. Any more?
Any more questions from the audience?
Yes, sir.
What can you say to inspire us architecture students and practicing architects? What can you say to us right now to challenge us?
Yes, sir. Quotes that I share. And we have a dialogue notebook Because I have no time to talk to everybody. We have a dialogue notebook. Anybody can write there. Nobody is wrong. And one of the things I share in that notebook is when better is doable, good is not good enough. So when you say your morning prayers, you must promise yourself, I shall be at least 1% better than yesterday. When you do your night prayers, at least I should be 1% better tomorrow than today. It can be 15%, baka mamatay pa kayo sa ulcer or whatever. And then, what else do we have? We tell our staffers, every line you draw, if you do it right, think of the beneficiaries. If you make mistakes, you did a lousy job, think of the sufferer. Including details like handicap ramp. Maybe the first sufferer will be your grandmother because you forgot it. And sanctifying your work, you get blessings also. Think of the jobs you'll be creating and so on. And we also have Palafox vocabularies that we did not learn in school. So when we do a design charrette, I think we do that also. Everybody comes on board, including the messengers and everybody. We do role modeling. Be the foreign investor. You be the senior citizen. Be in a wheelchair. You're a teenager. You are a young kid. How will you make it? How would you like the facility, like a shopping mall? How will it make it for you to keep coming back? When we did Rockwell, I had 3 words, challenge to the design team. It must be unique, memorable, and identifiable. And when people ask me what's your best project, I think it's Rockwell, Alabang, Cebu Business Park, Dubai. I tell them it's the next one. Because the next one you learn from previous. So people also ask me how come we publish books sharing our secrets. It's okay if they copy us. It's a compliment. So it challenges ourselves to do better than what's in our book. And every day we try to share. And we're a disciplined company. Even me, if I don't have my ID, I have 100 peso fine. It goes to our Christmas party fund. So the leader must be the exemplar, not the exempted. What else? Balwin? Yeah, postcards from the future. We have it here. Postcards from the future. We're doing now the uglification of our city. Our city is so ugly. The decision of the built environment are the politicians, lawyers, corrupt contractors, corrupt consultants. In fact, I tell media, I have invitation more than once a day to talk to the media. In fact, I tell them, we're 30,000 Filipino architects, why me? And they say, because you are free to express truth. You express everything you want to share. Because one of my challenges is, I may be a bullet, somebody might put a bullet in my head as I go out here. But if I cannot share with you every knowledge I have, it's useless. And I tell our people also, when you have the knowledge, share it. If you just keep it to yourself, you'll never become an expert. Once you start sharing it, you become an expert. I was a lecturer of Harvard before I became a student, Harvard and MIT. And I enrolled 8 times. I look at who are the professors. Like I told you, Eugene Cohn of Confederation Facts founder was my professor. Art Gensler of Gensler, he was my professor also. One of the biggest developers of the world, Gerald Hines was my professor also. And inside the classroom, because outside the classroom, I'm a competitor. Because you're also architect, I'm an architect. You know what I usually ask them? If I give you a big eraser, how would you have done it any better? And they're obliged to tell me because I'm matriculated. But outside the door, I'm a competitor. And they answer me. Not the Shanghai Tower and the financial center in Shanghai. I asked the designers. And Confederation Facts told me the design he preferred was a circle on the top. But the Chinese government disapproved it because it looks like the Japanese flag. Now they put it a square, and I told Chinko, it looks like a bottle opener. and in our office, we always do three alternative designs and master plans. Because again, quote from me, I'd rather see my mistakes on paper than see it in concrete. Why do we have so many lousy government infrastructure and buildings? They only give one solution. And in our office, when I come in, I participate in the concept. We have uh, Palafox vocabulary. Like I would ask them, uh, first my wow. Let's say a building of 12. First the wow building. Where's my wow? And sometimes get written like the copy. I'm not able to. Then the next one, where's my slam dunk? Where's my 3-point shot? Slam dunk and 3-point shot, these are memorable shots. At the same points, in a basketball game, what do you remember? The slam dunk and the 3-point shot. You don't remember the other shot. And there are slam dunks, one buildings, 3-point shot buildings, but there are also background buildings. Kasi it cannot all be wow, 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 wow. Some are wow, some are background. So we're writing a dictionary of architectural vocabulary from our point of view. Yeah. Any more? So is that good enough advice? And one, I'm also a sinner, but first thing in the morning I pray. And before I sleep, I also pray and forgive all my critics. They will have insomnia. I'll be sleeping very well. And as like a former seminarian, I will still go to confession and also serve community. And we've designed the largest mosque in the country. I'm not a Muslim, and the Sultan of Brunei who funded it, he chose us. We designed temples for the Buddhists and for the Christians and so on. And a lot of Catholic churches and seminaries. Any more?
Are there any questions?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm an architecture student from Manila University, and I just want to know your thoughts and maybe the first step in redeveloping the streets of Manila.
Yeah, I share with you when we are not too busy with architectural perspectives, urban design perspectives, how they should look like. I presented it to President Mayor Era. And architect, I love it, I like it. And then I asked, unfortunately, we don't have a budget right now for urban renewal. And Mr. Mayor, Mr. President, how come you have a big budget for Miss Chinatown, Miss Binondo, Miss Manila, and you don't have a budget for urban planning? It's really priorities. But the mayor of San Juan, she was so convinced. She hired us second or third time already. Because we make San Juan, it must be a world-class city if they follow our smart design of the future. Thank you. In fact, we can have a joint project. And we're writing a book, Philippines at 500 and beyond, 2021 to 2121. 2121, maybe you'll still be around. Yeah. 2021, I'll be 71. Yeah. And take pictures of the ugliness. It starts with Intramuros, the uglification of Intramuros, the uglification of your barangay. Whose fault is it? The one who decided. You investigate. Who were the designer? Who were the consultant? Who was the mayor? Who was the Beach and Awards Committee? How much was pocketed? You know, corruption kills. I just wrote that in Manila Times, I think 3 weeks ago. It went viral all over the world and explained. Let's say a corrupt senator has 26% from the contractor. Where did the contractor take out the 26%? Maybe from the steel bars to the concrete mix. So with everybody's talking about the big one. 7.2 intensity or magnitude. 7 bridges of Pasig River will collapse. The only one that was retrofitted was Ayala Bridge. The others, no. Guadalupe will collapse. I think this administration will fix it. That's why every time I pass by Guadalupe, I drive faster. And only 2% of tall buildings will collapse. 30% of low-rise buildings will collapse. Most government buildings, infrastructure will collapse, or they will all collapse. And that's why I encourage people, because 40% of our economy, education, government, armed forces, police, they're all in Metro Manila. 40%. So if the big earthquake happens, our country will be crippled economically. With good governance, it will probably take 15 years to recover. With lousy governance, maybe 100 years is not even. And right now we're planning the province of Pampanga. And I told the governor and the former president, Pampanga, we can fit 3 Singapores or 2 Hong Kong. And provided you follow our plan. Zamboanga City, we planned it. We can put more than 1 Hong Kong in Zamboanga. On Monday, I'll be going to Davao, and I propose to do a Davao Gulf megalopolis, several metropolitan areas. There's so much to do here. You just corruption, red tape, criminality. You don't have to look for jobs abroad. Okay, thank you. Any more? Just look at the website. If we don't answer like 16th of March, I got 2,000 birthday greetings while I was in Hiroshima. So I could not answer everyone. Yes, ma'am.
My question is, basically you are very obvious that you're very established and that you already have your advocacy, but you must have started somewhere. So my question is, what was the mindset that you developed when you were progressing as an architect?
As an architect at UST, started with how to sharpen the pencil, how to do a good border line, and how to do the title block, and Iglesia ni Cristo churches, my professor in UST. Then there was a scholarship competition for UP. I got 3 scholarships at UP. Because when I was at UST, I was also a student activist. So I got 1 incomplete grade. Let's say my architectural grade, the score will be 99. -5 for every day of delay. Sometimes my score is negative. So one of my professor, the late architect Mariano, told me, you choose June. I fail you or incomplete. Sir, make it incomplete. I will take summer classes. And then when I got just before martial law, because of my thesis, I resigned from the student activism. I was representing UST, the National Union of Students. Sometimes you're in Menjola, in Zamboanga, in Sagada, organizing student activism. Then after that, with the 1 peso per hour, front page advertisement, competition for scholarship grant, masters in environmental planning at UP, I got 3 scholarships. United Nations, UP State University Scholar, and Department of Public Works Transportation Communications. So the 2-year course, I took it in 13 months. So I had to, instead of serving government projects for 4 years, I did it for 2 years. That's why I was able to go to Dubai. So that's my start. In Dubai, among all the SPAC page, I was the youngest and the only Southeast Asian. So it challenged me to do better than everyone else because I came from a developing country. The others are Europeans and Americans. So you challenge yourself, have no fear. And even in the US, in Harvard, always the first one who recite. And my classmates asked me, June, how come you're always seated in front? I just told them because I have a Napoleonic height. If I stay at the back, I cannot see the professor anymore. I was always a parang professor's pet. I'm the first one to ask a question to answer because even at UP, 120 books per trimester, physically impossible. In Harvard case studies, you see, so what I do, I read the table of contents, introduction, at random the middle of the book, and the conclusion. Also at UP the same. And at UP we had a professor from England, and book review. First thing we did was, we do not agree with the title of the book. And we were able to justify it. We got very high grades. Maybe if our teacher was a Filipino, he could have dropped us for not agreeing with the title of the book. So always keep trying. And I'm not afraid to compete with big firms. And we're so lucky to be invited in design competitions. Yeah. And I think continuing education. Every year I go back to learnings, the best practices in the world, especially after a global crisis. At preschool to unlearn the mistakes of the past and the best practices. Sometimes when I share it in our country, I sound like a revolutionary. Elsewhere in the world, these are best practices. And in our office, we have core values. HIP, honesty, integrity with professionalism. Then the environment, spirituality, business orientation, agility, and so on. And for every project you do, pro Deo, patria, et terra. For God, country, and planet Earth. Thank you very much. I think
Thank you for sharing your time and knowledge. Here at Anthology 2016, Context and Intent. To present our token of appreciation on behalf of WTA Design Studio is architect Roy Snickdow.
thank you so much, and I hope you have take-home lessons from this conversation. Thank you.